Okay, perfect. All right, so what are we talking about today? What's the focus of our chapter for today?
Diversity in the workplace.
Diversity in the workplace, okay? Why are we talking about diversity in the workplace in an ethics course?
Because to make ethical decisions, you have to think about everything around you, including the different people you work with and the different scenarios each of them has.
Okay, so we recognize that business is the interaction with other people, right? With the intent that, right, getting way back to Aristotle, and that's concept of economy, taking care of myself, also in that Aristotelian concept means that I have to take care of my community, right? And so one of the arguments that we see in this chapter is this idea that if we're going to take care of others, we can't just take care of a specific group, but we have to recognize that there are people out there who can be valuable in our economy, but who are not necessarily like us, okay? In a lot of texts, they refer to that as the other. Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, geez, even worse. Yes. I took her out to lunch and we ran out of time, so I invited her to come to class. But so this idea of our economy is we recognize that there is the other, the person who is not us, who might not look like us, might not think like us, might not act like us, might not talk like us, but they are still part of our community. That's the first concept. The second concept of ethics is that in many cases, we have the choice to involve other people, right? We see this in hiring. We see this in mentoring. We see this in when we innovate in the workplace, we have choices about who we involve. And so one of the arguments that I think the text is trying to get to is it's not just what the bare minimum, what the law says we have to do, but we aspire to a higher standard of what we ought to do. And so the idea of ethics and diversity is, and this is kind of a struggle, and I appreciated, I saw a lot of comments that wrestled with this idea of, yes, we should prioritize including other people into the workplace, especially people who are underrepresented, or that for one reason or another, we have to go, okay, or for one reason or another, have challenges in the workplace that need to be overcome, right? But we also balance that with the question of, is that emphasis or overemphasis on diversity hurting other people unintentionally? Because if I'm hiring people simply because they belong to these underrepresented groups, does that mean that the right or the best person is being hired for the job? In other words, am I getting passed over because my boss feels like they have to hire a person from X group, which means I don't get the job? How do I balance that, right? That's what this chapter is really kind of getting into, and that's why we're talking about it in ethics, because when we make those things like hiring decisions, we have to make sure not just that we follow the law, but that we make hiring decisions in such a way so that we can be comfortable and sleep at night with the decisions that we make. Because if all things are equal, how do I decide? If all things are equal between candidate A and candidate B, how do I make a legitimate choice that benefits my entire community? Okay, so that's what we're getting at today. Okay, so very long spiel for very short value. So let's get started with some more value. So we're going to start today with Megan. Megan, are you with us today?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, the entire board.
Can I answer number 2?
Number 2, absolutely.
So which of the following are factors included when applying a legal definition of diversity? And I thought all of them are correct. So social status, religious beliefs, and gender and physical abilities.
Okay, I would agree with religious belief. I would agree with gender and with physical abilities, but I'm not going to agree with social status. Why not? Why might I say from a legal definition, why would social status not be a legal definition of diversity? What are we talking about when we say social status?
Like middle class, lower class, and
Yeah, exactly. It's what we call socioeconomic status. That's the very common term for it, or SES. It's how much money we have. Does the amount of money we have make a difference legally as to whether or not I am a diverse representative? Does it make a difference whether I get hired or not? Not from a legal standpoint. The other three, religious belief, gender, and physical ability, these are protected class, and that's a specific legal term. They are protected classes. This comes from the 14th Amendment. Okay, these are classes which legally we cannot make decisions or for or against somebody because of B, C, and D. However, economic status or social status is not one of those. Okay? So, Megan, I'm going to give you a chance to kind of pull this one out. Why, for example, do you think gender is a part of a legal definition of diversity?
I don't know if this counts as legal, but women and men bring different perspectives and ideas, and our brains function differently. So, like, it's different ideas and different ways of going about different problems.
Okay. While that is true, from a legal perspective, this goes back to that 14th Amendment. And one of the things is that an interpretation of the 14th Amendment says you cannot make decisions on the basis of sex. Thank you. I was trying to think of the name of the movie. You cannot make it on the basis of sex. Okay? Because before those laws were passed or those interpretations, there were jobs that women were legally not allowed to do. Even if they were capable, they were not legally allowed to do so. And so the purpose of the 14th, or the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, was you could not make discrimination or the hiring or non-hiring of somebody based upon their gender. Okay, excellent. All right, let me open this back up.
We've come a long way.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because again, this is where I really was excited to see some of the things you guys were saying, because in the, I'm trying to remember who said it. But somebody was saying, well, if we've come so far and we're increasing rapidly the number of women being hired, why do we still see such a wage difference between men and women? If we're saying, yes, we should hire women, why are we not paying them the way we should? Okay, like I said, I couldn't remember who brought it up, but I thought it was an interesting argument.
A little bit, because it was like, you can almost play with data to make it look however you choose. Because some of it was, I felt like age, and women make choices like to stop their careers for a while and then raise the family. So they're the same age as someone else, but maybe their level of education when they go back to the workforce is not as equal. So then they would be getting to be equal.
I would normally agree with that, except for example, the Walmart case showed that there was no difference in experience, that men were more experienced and therefore they were getting the pay raises. In quite a few cases, they showed the women were extremely more qualified and prepared but were being passed over for men with significantly less experience, and those men were making more than females in the exact same position, even though they had less experience than their counterparts. So I would agree that would be a possibility, except for, unfortunately, the data doesn't support that. Okay, so we got number 2 done.
I disagree.
Okay, explain why. I'm going to disagree because I know that if he argues with me, he's going to be.
No, I disagree with that, because I think that women are paid less.
No.
And I think that there is discrimination there. And to a point, I feel like that I have experienced it. And it can be rough.
You realize we agree with each other. I'm saying that that's not right. I'm just saying the argument that, well, women have left the workforce, therefore this explains it. I'm saying the data does not support that. The data shows that these pay differences are not based on start and stop ages and activities.
I think one aspect of this would be how aggressive people are with their pay. And I don't want to throw sexes do this, sexes do that out there, but like, you know, when I'm getting a paycheck, I'm really looking for that pay raise, or I'm very vocal that, you know, am I being paid about the same, or am I being paid equal? I don't know if that's a standard that men do and so on and so forth. And I don't want to put assumptions out there, but I think that's one aspect, is how aggressive are you saying, am I being paid fairly?
You know, and I hear what you're saying, Sam, but what I have also seen, and the stats back this up, that men being aggressive in getting pay equity and pay increases, that is rewarded if men do it. But if women demonstrate the exact same behaviors and use the exact same terms, it is often viewed negatively if they are women, whereas it is viewed positively if they're men.
Yeah, see, that's kind of why I wanted to be careful with how I said that, because I don't have any data supporting it. They just say, maybe this is something we could look into.
No, and that's what we're saying is men are rewarded for that behavior, but the evidence seems to suggest that when women try to engage in those exact same behaviors, they are penalized for it. So again, getting back to the entire question of, so why are we talking about this in ethics? Why are we talking about this in ethics? Okay, if it's not right and it's not good, what were you going to say, Sam?
Oh, same idea.
That if we're aware of this, I might not be able to change the attitudes of people out in the field, but I'm hoping that this, as an ethical standard, you will start to ask yourself, when I'm involved in this, how will I act? If I have the opportunity to give an opinion on other people's decision-making, I can bring this up. That's why we're talking about this. Okay? All right, Scott, you're up.
Okay, can I do number 5?
Number 5. Okay, go for it.
Which company denied a teenage girl a job because she did not conform to the company's look policy when she wore a hijab, a headscarf, to the job interview? And that is B, Abercrombie and Fitch.
Abercrombie and Fitch, okay. So what is this look policy that they're talking about? Yeah, it was a very aggressive dress code that Abercrombie and Fitch created, right? That, for example, to work in the front of the store where you would interact with the public, they had very strict guidelines of your physical appearance. You had to be a certain age, a certain height. What's that?
Very little.
You had to be, your weight,
Stop there.
your weight, well, the clothes in and of themselves were very specifically targeted to a very specific demographic. But if you did not fit into those appearance requirements, you are only allowed to work in the back out of the view of the public. Okay, all right, thanks, Sam. Porter.
Okay, I'm going to do number 3. If a person has a disability that reduces participation in a major life activity such as work, an employer is obliged to provide reasonable accommodations.
Okay. What does that mean?
So I understood that as like if you're in a wheelchair, then they have to provide like ramps for stairs and elevators and such. And I don't know, that's, I guess mainly for like physical disabilities.
Okay, these primarily are physical abilities. The idea is if I have these impairments, my employer is required, if I can do the job I'm being hired to do, they have to create conditions so that I can do it, right? So for example, a classic example, somebody gets hired with that sits in a wheelchair. They are perfectly capable of working as a receptionist, right? Okay, the disability just prevents them from standing. I have to create a work environment where that person can do all of their reception tasks without being required to stand or to reach for things. So I have to modify the reception area to accommodate somebody in a wheelchair. Okay, exactly. Cattell is perfect, if it's okay with you, Cattell is perfectly capable of participating in this class, right? We've seen her every day in class. She participates. However, because of physical challenges, she has to have a chair that provides additional lumbar support because otherwise she cannot sit comfortably enough to be able to concentrate and participate in class. So a reasonable accommodation would be a padded chair. So the American with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, was the act made by Congress that said, we will require employers to provide reasonable accommodations to meet physical and mental challenges or disabilities. Now, what if I wanted, or actually I'm going to pick on her since she's here today. Okay, if you haven't realized, my wife is sitting in the back of the corner, and she has this desperate dream. All she wants to do is be a Costco forklift driver. That is, I mean, the ultimate dream job, the job she would pay to have.
It's not true.
Not true, but for the sake of argument.
There's much better jobs.
Okay, because of my wife's visual limitation, okay, she does not have a driver's license. She really wants this job. Is it a reasonable accommodation? Is there a reasonable accommodation to allow her to be a forklift driver?
No offense, but absolutely not.
Absolutely freaking not.
I would say abso-freaking-lutely. You get me behind that deal.
Okay, having driven with her,
No.
and I will say that there's been one or maybe two times where we have not necessarily adhered to the legal requirements for operating a motor vehicle. She's a great driver, but I would not trust her within 50 yards of a forklift. Okay, so when we say reasonable accommodations, it doesn't mean, the ADA does not mean that any employer has to give any person any job. What we're saying is, if there are reasonable accommodations that can be made for somebody to be able to perform the job, they are legally required to do so. But if they are unreasonable requirements, like allowing Stevie Wonder in the back to drive a forklift, okay, that was inappropriate.
That wasn't.
That was bad.
It was very good.
Okay, now that's recorded for all eternity, and I'm going to pay for that one. But yeah, there's no way a Costco would be required to let her drive a forklift. Okay, perfect. All right. Cattell, you're up.
Okay, so we switch it up from that to animals. Let's do that.
What's that?
Let's do number 9.
Number 9. Wow, we're standing right up at the front. Okay, go for it.
Enacted in 1966, which was the great wonderful year I was born. Which of the following laws is the most important U.S. law forbidding cruelty to animals and mandatory sentence? And that's the Animal Welfare Act, which was, thank goodness we have that.
Okay, why?
Because some of the things that were being done to animals and or people that had animals were not treated or properly treating them. But, for instance, let's just take an example for also if you're going to be purchasing food, you don't want them eating on that animal that's going to be harvested for you eating, because it also needs the meat.
Okay, so in 1966, the Animal Welfare Act was intended to recognize that there were certain rights that existed for all living creatures, not just humans. This is a big deal. Why? What is different between, what is the kind of argument that the Animal Welfare Act kind of suggests? And I just kind of hinted at it. All living beings have rights. Even if they cannot stand in a courtroom and argue for them, we are obligated as thinking creatures to protect the rights of those who cannot speak. This is a part of when we started to see the movement to recognize the environment as a stakeholder. Remember we talked about that a long time ago? That it used to be the only discussion was, do I have a legal right to ownership of the land? And if the answer was yes, I could do whatever I wanted to on that land. But we have now come to recognize that even if we have ownership, what we do on a specific parcel of land can have a huge impact outside of it. And so therefore the environment now has standing to oppose implementation of personal rights. This is pretty radical because it's the first time we've ever said that non-humans could have rights that prevent humans from doing what they want to. This is radical thinking in 1966. It had never happened in the world prior to that. Okay. Zach, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'll do number 28.
Number 28.
It states, true or false, cases of workplace discrimination can be based on cultural heritage or religion. That's true because of Title VII.
Okay, so how could religion result in workplace discrimination?
Well, we kind of saw it with the girl not being able to wear her
hijab?
Yeah, right. So in her belief, in the Islam belief, that's what she wears and stuff like that. But the company wanted her to wear whatever they wanted, and I feel like that was kind of like a religious type of discrimination.
Okay, so a classic example might be that I want you to work a graveyard shift, which means late night into early morning. If I'm Jewish and you ask me to work a graveyard shift on Friday night, why might that be a problem? Because I have a religious belief that the Sabbath occurs on Saturday, and it's a holy day that I'm not supposed to work. And if I express that to you, I cannot work on this day, it's part of my religion. You say, well, then you're fired. Can I do that?
You can't follow that.
Title VII protects, or if I realize when you come in to interview that you're wearing a yarmulke, which is the small head covering that they wear, okay? If I was to wear that, and I saw that, and I go, well, I know you can't work on Friday, so I'm not going to hire you.
Couldn't that fall under like a right to work state? I think it's like a right to work state. Like you could fire them and like, yeah, you have a right to work or not work.
Well, normally I would say yes, unless
That's discrimination.
it's discrimination based on religious practice. And I cannot fire somebody who can do the job other than that they cannot work on Fridays, if they can work any other time. But I say that I'm not going to hire you because of your religious or your religious affiliation. That's against the law. So a right to work state, or the concept of right to work, is not absolute. The employer, public or private, does not have the right to simply say, it's my business and I can fire you if I want to. You have to have certain, and there are certain grounds that you cannot fire somebody. Yes?
So then on the flip side, would it be ethical for like managers to like know about like an employee's religion and then hire them based on that? Like, or is that also like against?
Wouldn't that be discrimination against others who aren't?
Well,
It's not
here's
like
the thing.
about anyone else, it's just about that individual.
It's that, for example, I recognize that we have a common religious belief that we share, and therefore I'm going to hire you over anybody else. If it could be argued that it is illegal, but it is pretty much impossible to prove. Okay? And so that's the one thing. It becomes very difficult. But if I was to say, okay, the idea of cultural heritage, this kind of came back from the 1950s and 60s. Oh, you're German. Yeah, we don't hire Germans. Or Japanese. Okay, this comes even farther back. Irish need not apply. In New York, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there would be signs on the door that said Irish need not apply. If you were Irish, you could not even apply to work there.
Isn't that where the New York gangsters came from, like back in the day?
Well, there's a lot of different cultural groups that had organized crime.
Yeah.
But in the late 1800s, you saw things like Tammany Hall and other things like that. But yeah, so the idea was cases of workplace discrimination can occur based on religious belief or cultural heritage. All right, excellent. All right, Josh, you're up.
Number 27, true or false.
Okay.
I wanted to say false because it's not required for the employee to disclose that they have a disability. But they should when a reasonable accommodation is needed to prevent performance problems from arising, or at least before they become serious in the workplace. And the employer is not legally allowed to ask if they have a disability.
They're not allowed to ask if they have it, and they're not required to explain why they need it, but they can identify reasonable accommodations, but they don't have to explain why they need them. Okay, Kyle, do you have a question?
Yeah. Doesn't that rule change if you're working for a government entity though?
Not necessarily. No individual is ever required to divulge the presence of a disability. Okay? And a business cannot inquire, an employer cannot inquire if a person has a disability. Yes.
What about the military?
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that on job applications? Like,
Because when I signed up for the military, I'm pretty sure I had to disclose any disabilities I had.
That might be the case because of the specific requirements of the military service.
that's kind of where I was.
And I think that, but I would separate that.
It's the only exception.
Well, but my brother went through top school and made it all the way to the end, found out that he has the same eye disease that I have at the same time, could not pass the one night test. And so, I mean, with him, I don't know how that would fit in because he did well during the day and he passed everything during the day, but then came night, then he wasn't able to, and he found out why after. So had they hired him and not found out, could they have fired him?
Well, yes, they could have, because the truth is, with your eye condition, his eyesight would deteriorate to the point where he could no longer legally drive, which was a mandatory requirement of being a
Yeah.
police officer. Well, actually, that's not necessarily
didn't
true. He
know-
could do
He didn't know
desk
at the
days.
time.
Yeah. Well, the truth is, he could have completed his training and become like a dispatcher or something like that, where he wouldn't need to drive.
What about the firing of a gun?
I was gonna say, what about guns?
Oh, trust me, knowing my brother-in-law was best for all of us, that he chose another career field. I say that with nothing but admiration for the guy, but nevertheless. But if we look at the specific language of this question, the law requires that an employee disclose having a disability. The law will never require somebody to disclose if they have a condition or not.
So, just to clarify, if I applied at INL and I did have a disability and asked me on an application and they are going to do a security check and a clearance,
Mm-hmm.
would I have to disclose that?
Well, if they are asking for assistance.
What if I'm not asking for assistance?
Okay, so what I'm understanding from this is if your disability is going to hamper your ability to do the job as it has been prescribed.
Okay.
So for example, if you're working in a nuclear reactor where mobility is a critical part of the job, being able to get from place A to place B, okay, which includes climbing stairs or descending stairs. If you have a physical mobility issue that is going to prevent you from being able to do that, they have a right to know that. Okay, but if you're asking for assistance or accommodations, you do not have to tell them why you're asking for it.
Okay.
So could someone like take advantage of that and be like, I need this, but I'm not gonna tell you about I'm not gonna tell you but they don't actually have a disability?
Yes, they
I mean,
could.
obviously, it's unethical to do that.
It is
but-
incredibly unethical to do it. Can it happen? Yes, it can.
And that's what makes it so hard to do.
And that's what creates the stigma against providing accommodations, because there's always this question of, well, do you really need it? Which then gets into privacy questions. Because if somebody knew that I had a physical disability that I felt I would be judged for, and if nobody knew it, they would never judge me because it wasn't relevant, but they thought it might be. This is where that privacy versus public access, it gets tricky. All right, Logan, you're up. Logan going once. Logan going twice. All right, Kaysen. Kaysen going once. Kaysen going twice. Jackson. Jackson going once. Jackson going twice. Billy. Okay, guys, you're making me look bad. I brought my wife in to show how awesome I am as a teacher, and nobody shows up.
They're all coming together.
Okay. Jack, I was about to say, you better be there, or so help me, it's gonna get ugly up in here. All right, Jack, what do you got?
I'm here, but I don't have any questions to answer. No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
So
I can take care of that. What do you
number
got?
35.
Number 35?
Yeah, it says explain some benefits of employee diversity in the workplace. And
Okay.
in the reading, it mentioned a study that was done that had shown that places of work that were more diverse had enhanced creativity, improved employee satisfaction, and also improved customer goodwill.
Okay? So why are those important?
Well, I think they're important, specifically the customer goodwill one. I thought that was kind of interesting because obviously a business's customer base is going to be pretty diverse. And so having a diverse group of coworkers is just going to help people who work there kind of be able to understand the way that different cultures and different people think, and will also kind of just aid in them as a business being able to help their customers even better.
Excellent. All right, Anthony, you're up. And we were doing so well. Anthony going once.
You're on a roll.
Anthony going twice.
Have there ever been this many people who miss a class?
Well, yes, sadly. All right, Caden, are you with us? Oh, guys, you're killing me.
This is most that's ever missed it.
I know, Caden going twice. All right, I know Tanner's here, so Tanner, you're up.
Okay. Can I do 27?
Number 27.
I mean,
Number
no.
20. Nope, you can't.
Oh, just kidding. I mean 29. 29. Sorry. Dyslexic
Okay.
here. Okay. I don't believe Texas was part of the 21 states.
Plus, that you are dyslexic. It is not a condition that you have to disclose when asking for accommodations in this class. Sorry, I had to go there, Tanner. It's my bad.
I know.
All right.
I'm not really dyslexic. I just was like, I was thinking 27. I was thinking 29, looking at 27. But yes, no, I believe it is false that Texas is not one of the 21 states that prohibits sexual orientation discrimination in private and public workplaces.
Yeah, I sadly to say, I don't see Texas being associated with anything that would be described as progressive. In any way. I think that's a gentle way of saying it. Okay? All right, so yes, that is correct. It is false. All right? So let me ask you this question. What do we mean by sexual orientation discrimination?
So I mean, it's the same thing. I think you can't fire somebody because they associate differently sexually. Like you can't fire somebody just because they're gay or lesbian or the LGBTQ or whatever it is now. You can't discriminate them against them because of that. Like it's the same thing. Like they're almost classifying it kind of like a race. Like you can't, like a race or religion. Like you can't.
Term is a protected class.
Yeah.
This is a class where we feel that, so the entire concept of a protected class is the nature of that category or group is such that we feel that they require legal protection. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Tanner.
You
bet. All right, Andrew, are you with us?
I am.
All right, what would you like to answer?
Let's do number 6.
Let me scroll all the way to the top, huh? Okay. Okay, go for it.
So which of the following best describes income inequality? And I would say that's C. On average, women are paid approximately 80% of what men are paid.
Okay. Problem is, my glasses are so dirty I can't see through them, but I'm also so blind that I can't see without them. I would actually say that I'm going to say that C is correct, but I don't think that it's the best description of income equality because I think the answer is B. So why would the answer be B instead of C?
I guess C is more specific or more applicable, but B is definitely like a definition of it almost.
Exactly. B is the overall definition. C is an example, but there are other kinds of income inequality, right? Differences between racial groups, age groups, differences between education groups, Okay, so the idea is income inequality is any time when there is an imbalance in the distribution of income over an economy.
So, is that kind of ironic that there's rules that say you can't use your pay?
It does, because it points at this, how can, I mean, one of the biggest challenges that women have encountered in this idea that women are paid 80% of men is because in many cases they are legally prohibited from finding out that they're even getting paid differently.
That's what I was.
And so that is, that is the irony. And so you've got two laws that are kind of competing against each other. Salary privacy. What's the benefit of salary privacy? Why would that be a legal standard?
Well, like, you know, just live up other people, you possibly hurt them, I guess.
Okay.
As far as like, feelings.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain that.
You won't get judged based off what you get paid.
Okay. So we balance that sense of the need for discretion and privacy so that a business can operate without having other people come in and steal their employees. But then we balance that with Title IX issues of women just get paid less for no other reason than because they're women. So how do we balance those two laws? I don't have an answer. There's a reason why I teach and I'm not in politics, because man, I'm not smart enough to do that kind of stuff.
I just thought it was kind of interesting.
No, but this is a classic example. All right, Sam, you're up.
Hey, so I'm gonna do the short answer 38. Using
Okay,
Google,
a short answer to 38.
Yeah, using Google as an example of the technology sector, discuss the progress or lack thereof in achieving a more diverse workforce. So in our reading, we saw that Google had a majority of white males in positions over females or other ethnic groups. And so I wanted to do more research on this topic, but I kind of didn't have the time to do it. But I think the major problem here is how many people get degrees in the field to be able to work in the technology sector versus other different fields. In the reading, it talks about how women in different ethnic backgrounds tend to get more in the healthcare sector. So when we're talking about people having the qualifications to do this type of work or even applying for this type of work, there's not enough people. For example, if there aren't women applying for the jobs, it's really hard to diversify just because you literally don't have the people to be diversified. And so in order to get better ratios, you would just have to hire less people. And for a corporation, that might not be an option. And so it's finding a balance to be able to support women going to college in these getting degrees in the technology field, technology sector, and supporting that, in which you would be able to have a more diverse workforce. You need to make it appealing for everybody to want to be in that instead of just X amount of people in this specific category applying for it because it pays good or whatever reason behind it.
Excellent. And this is a key challenge here at the College of Technology. Okay, many what we call STEM jobs, which is what we're talking about here, tend to overrepresent men in terms of the number of people who go into the field versus their overall proportion of the population. Okay, if women make up 50% of the population, you would expect 50% of the students in a particular program to be women, but we don't see that. There's a lot of different arguments about why that's the case. One of the big challenges that the College of Technology faces is how do we help encourage women to feel qualified, accepted, and wanted in these fields, because we recognize diversity is valuable. But like Sam brought up, and I think this is a fantastic example, even if they are desirable, if there's not enough of them applying, that field will remain representative of the people who get degrees in that field, right? If 80% of the people who graduate in nuclear operations are male, what am I going to expect to see in the field? Just that same proportion. Okay? All right, excellent, thank you. All right, Haley, we haven't heard from you yet. Are you with us today?
I am.
Excellent, what do we got for us?
I'm going to do number 36, distinguish between diversity and inclusion.
Okay, excellent question. Go for it.
So diversity is a characteristic of what makes you who you are or different from other people. And inclusion is a behavior that would include or welcome other people's ideas or input.
Okay, so diversity is who we are. Inclusion is what we do. So just because people are diverse does not make us inclusive. Just because there are different people in the workplace does not mean that we're inclusive. Inclusivity is manifested when we do things that encourage interaction and cooperation between those groups. Okay? So for example, if I hire a large number of women into a field, but they all go to one area and everybody else goes to another area, that workplace is diverse, but not inclusive. Can a workplace be inclusive but not diverse? Absolutely. Again, diversity is who we are, inclusivity is how we act or what we do. So we can have everybody looks the same, or, okay, for example, Southeast Idaho tends to be very homogeneous. What does that mean? Everybody kind of looks the same. We tend to be very Caucasian in this area. There are populations that are not Caucasian in this area, right? But most people would say Southeast Idaho, you're white. Okay? There is predominant religious beliefs in this area. Even though those beliefs can vary widely in their practice, right? Okay, so I can still be inclusive even if I have a homogeneous population. Okay, I can still have a diverse population, but if they don't interact, then it's not inclusive. Okay, Haley, excellent question. Winter, do you want to go for one?
Yes.
Okay, what do you got?
So I liked question 41. It says,
Okay.
what protections for workers exist in terms of religious freedom? The book mentioned the Constitution.
Yep.
And the rights for like freedom of religion.
Yep.
And then there's also the law where like you can't like not hire someone because of their religion. You can't fire someone because of their religion.
Okay. So these are the Religious Freedom Act and the First Amendment are some of the primary tools that are used to prevent religious discrimination and to protect religious freedom. However, this is not a settled issue because there's a lot of questions about the application of this. We still see the Supreme Court wrestling with that even this year, with questions, for example, the Hobby Lobby Act about whether or not an organization or a private business that has a specific religious belief is required to adhere to federal law that violates those beliefs. And Hobby Lobby, it was, we do not believe in, what is the word? Somebody help me here. They did not want to have to provide birth control as a part of the Affordable Care Act. They said, as a private business, you're asking me to pay for this service for my employees that I have a religious stance against.
Was the owner Catholic?
I don't believe so. I think they were Protestant of some type. But there were several others that joined in that suit that were Catholic.
Yeah.
And so it ended up saying that no, private organizations that have standardized religious beliefs can do things this way. Where could that become a problem? Southeast Idaho. Okay. Well, but what if my religious beliefs said I have to do this or that I need you to agree with this to work here. That begins to create a religious test for employment, which gets into religious discrimination. It's tricky stuff. And people that are much wiser than I do still struggle with this kind of stuff. All right. Let's see. Kyle wants to do another one. Or does he have a question?
I didn't do one.
Oh, you didn't do one. You're right.
I was like, you didn't go yet.
Well, Winter hasn't gone yet.
I just went.
Oh, you just. It's a lack of oxygen getting to my brain.
Oh.
Can I just, I'll do a quick one, 39.
39. Okay.
So it says, what is the diversity dividend?
Yes.
So the book doesn't give like the most direct definition. It's kind of like it gives you examples of what that is.
Okay.
From what I read, or what I can comprehend, I guess.
I appreciate the distinction.
So I said that it expresses the commercial potential for companies who diversify their workforce at all levels.
Yeah, it's basically talking about the economic benefit that can be tracked from diversity, either in the workplace or in their representation and branding. And basically suggests that there is a clear economic benefit to diversity. Okay, excellent.
Side note, going back to the Texas thing, I just learned this yesterday that it is criminal for you to engage in sexual acts with your first cousin. It's not just illegal, it's not just like, it's not legal to get married. Which I thought was, I mean.
I'm not exactly sure how that is relevant to the conversation we're having, but thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
You mentioned that Texas is not a very.
Yeah, because they're not like moving forward.
I don't think we should be married our first cousin anyway, but.
I just thought it was an interesting fact that it was criminal.
Okay, I've heard of the out of left field, but I think this goes a step beyond that.
I can get behind that. I think that there's sense in that.
I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Okay, I'm about to teach you guys about a logical fallacy called non sequitur. Non sequitur means, it's from the Latin, it means it does not follow. It's when you provide completely irrelevant arguments to the debate you're having. So having a conversation about religious orientation and then to suddenly start talking, or no, we were talking about the diversity dividend and then immediately return to Texas is an example of a non sequitur. Okay.
It was good though.
It was, for entertainment value, right up there. Relevance value, yeah, not so much. All right, so. All right, we've got one more thing to do and then we're going to call it good for today. And that is that I am not going to forget that we have to do the random number generator, even though we have all agreed that the random number generator is anything but random.
Wait, quick question.
Yes, Tanner.
Okay, so back to my question about the true and false about the LGBTQ, the orientation. Can you fire somebody? Well, let's say there's a member of that community and their behavior is that it's obnoxious and annoying to other coworkers. Can they be fired for the behavior and they happen to be, what's the word, like overly flamboyant about their orientation? Is that legal?
I would say, normally what that's going to get into is sexual harassment.
Yeah.
And because one could make the argument that somebody could be overly flamboyant in a heterosexual way. Wearing sexually revealing or suggestive clothing, overly PDA, public displays of affection, like that. So I cannot fire somebody simply because they identify as being LGBTQ. However, if they have behavior that violates your sexual harassment policy, they can be fired for the same things that somebody that is heterosexual could be fired for.
Okay,
But just
yeah.
nature, it's the same as, well, I'm sorry, but I'm straight, so therefore I'm gonna get fired for that. Doesn't work. If I'm doing something that violates company policy, which is in line with legal processes, yes, I could.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so let's see.
Numbers 9 through 12. We're not
What do
here,
you
so
do right there?
we can still use them all, just like.
Okay, somebody's gonna keep track of the numbers for me?
Okay.
6.
6 was me, I already got it.
10 was not here. 14, Anthony was here. No, Anthony was not.
Oh.
Number 13 was here.
And 18.
What the heck,
Why
6
did you
again?
I got 7. I'll take it.
Was gone.
14 was gone. Okay, we're doing another number generator. This is getting crazy.
It's like, it's so unfortunate because all the middle people were gone.
All right, so we're gonna use a new one. Okay, so 8. Josh is here, Josh gets it. That's number 1.
There you go.
Number 2, Porter gets it.
Porter is here.
And Megan, okay?
You know what, 5?
So Josh, Porter, and Megan are the daily doubles for today. Is everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay, so I do apologize, I haven't gotten your captive customers' papers graded yet, but I will get those done. And I will make sure that I have a portal for you to submit your assignments this Thursday, unlike last Thursday.
I was like,
Did you do the midterm stuff yet? Is that not done, or did you?
Midterm grades, I believe, are done.
Okay, I
yeah,
got you.
mine's in there,
Yeah. So yeah, check to make sure that I got it. I think you had them submitted. I remember that. The only one that I screwed up on was Haley, I think. But I got that taken care of, by the way, so you don't get to get mad at me. Well, she must have worked logged out. All right, so that's everything I've got for today. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you in class on Thursday.